kwa njia stahiki.
Ufasaha, usawa, uketo, pasipo kuegemea upande wowote.
Iwapo hutakishaka kwa unachoarifiwa, Darubini itakidhi mahitaji yako.
Jina langu ni Nancy Onyancha.
Na mimi ni Harith Salim.
Jina langu ni Gladys Mungai.
Mimi ni Ahmed Jumabalo.
Nami ni Sarafina Robi.
KBC, angazo la Wakenya.
We are already halfway through the month of September. Welcome to our show. This is a News Check. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. The sign language interpreter at the bottom end of the screen is Lensa Odingo. This morning we'll be focusing on the electoral reforms that are expected to happen within the country, given that we do have the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that is the IEBC, that is yet to be fully reconstituted. On the eve, Parliament is already resuming. That is both the National Assembly and the Senate. So what will happen at the corridors of the August House? We do know there are various court proceedings that are delaying this election panel from carrying out various interviews and shortlisting those candidates. That will be our focus this morning on the first hour. On the second hour, we'll be focusing on leukemia in children. We'll be having experts here in the country to tell us about where are we as a country in terms of mitigating such cases within the confines of our borders, and also will the Social Health Insurance Fund, which the government has clearly stated will be replacing the National Health Insurance Fund, be adequately in terms of covering cancer treatment within the country, so that we can no longer see people going outside the country to receive treatment. That will be our focus. Also during the broadcast, we'll be focusing on various events that are happening here in the capital and across the 47 devolved units, especially when it comes to political formations. We do understand at the NARC Kenya headquarters, Martha Karua will be leading a delegation of Ekuru Okot Kivutha Kibwana, the former Makueni governor, addressing members of the Fourth Estate. Once we do get that link, we'll be going there live, as well as the Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka will be addressing also members of the Fourth Estate on various electoral reforms the country have been made. And in touching to what we'll be discussing this morning, you do remember he was the co-chair of the National Dialogue Committee NADCO report. Out of the NADCO report, the IEBC amendment bill that was assented to by President William Ruto is the only thing that has been addressed within the NADCO report. There are other various recommendations they had made, especially touching on the constitution itself, that are yet to be addressed. Given that Parliament has resumed, of course, this afternoon, we'll be airing that as well, with various parliamentary committees currently happening this morning and in the afternoon. Also, we'll be having the All Africa Judges and Jurists Summit that is currently happening in Hurlingham. Once we do get that particular link, we'll go there live. And finally, our reporters in Mombasa and Kisumu are also on standby with events that are unfolding in their various devolved units. Before I get to introduce my guest for the first hour, let's listen to the Speaker of the National Assembly, that is Moses Masika Wetangula, who spoke at a church event on Sunday in terms of Parliament resumption and what will Parliament focus on, especially when it comes to the reconstitution of IEBC.
Priority business includes the possibility of finishing up the reconstitution of IEBC. The country has gone without IEBC for a long time, and I take this opportunity to encourage those who have been making challenges in court to stall the process of having a selection panel for IEBC, to rethink their minds and give way for this noble cause. Because the country cannot go to the next elections without boundary review, without boundary delimitation, and without holding by-elections of the constituencies that are already vacant, either by way of resignation, death, or court processes. We also have many wards that have got vacancies that need to have by-elections. And as you know, the Supreme Court has directed that IEBC means commissioners and not the secretariat. So without commissioners, we cannot move. I also want to appeal to the Chief Justice that all the cases that are in court legitimately challenging this process, please fast-track them, give them priority so that we can be able to finish them and have an IEBC in place.
Exercising these freedoms and rights is fundamental for a functioning democracy and protecting human rights in Kenya. While the freedoms and rights are not absolute, limitations prescribed by law should be those that necessitate a democratic society and are justifiable based on human dignity, equality, and freedom.
That a number of electoral units have remained unrepresented for a period now because of the absence of members of County Assembly Ward and National Assembly. The continued uncertainty on when to conduct the above-mentioned by-elections may lead to the disenfranchisement of the respective residents of these electoral areas.
Urgently address the litigations relating to the issuance of ID cards so that citizens can continue to access relevant government services as well as exercise their democratic right to vote.
And those were the discussions that were happening during the weekend, especially from the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Masika Wetangula, who will be leading the resumption of Parliament this afternoon, stating that they will focus on the IEBC's reconstitution, but it has hit a snag and delays given that it has been taken to the corridors of justice, especially in the formation of the selection panel, where there was a bit of tiff between Augustus as well as Kokiomuli, and that was precipitated by the Wiper Party leadership that decided to make the change between Augustus and Ambassador Kokiomuli. And of course that and so much will be unfolding in the coming weeks. But we also do have what we call the boundaries delimitation that have been delayed to that aspect, given that Article 89 of the Constitution provides for 290 constituencies from where the members of the National Assembly are elected or appointed, whose names boundaries shall be reviewed by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC. Also, this will be done in intervals not less than 8 years and not more than 12 years, provided that the review shall be completed at least 12 months before the general election. That has not happened, with the IEBC clearly stating they have no powers given that the Secretariat is there. Now, to take us through this conversation this morning is none other than Vincent Kisukwa, the Advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Wakili, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, my brother.
Maybe we pick it up, Wakili, from there. You've just heard from the Speaker of the National Assembly and the various civil society. Where are we in terms of this IEBC's reconstitution?
First, let me acknowledge the fact that the President has done a very noble thing for sending the IEBC Amendment Bill 2024 into Act. This was done on the 9th of July 2024. At the moment, we don't have an IEBC already. The reconstitution process has not begun. We don't have IEBC commissioners on board. So where we are today, the selection panel, the names have just been released. But as you have said clearly, Augustus and Ambassador Kokiomuli, the Wiper Party has an issue in court, which means now we can't proceed. Because it's from this selection panel that advertises these vacancies for either the chairman and the commissioners. Once they advertise, now we begin the process. They publish the names, they shortlist, and they conduct interviews. It's within their mandate. So until we clearly finish up the issue in the court, then the selection panel now comes into force. It gains its authority and begins the shortlisting, the advertisement of the vacancies and shortlisting and interviews. Then now you can proceed. Then now you can proceed and reconstitute IEBC, and we have a substantive commissioners in office so that we can move forward as a nation. Yeah.
But what does this portend, Wakili? Is this a recipe for a constitutional crisis in waiting?
Clearly it is. Clearly it is, because the Supreme Court clearly held that the IEBC are the commissioners, is not the Secretariat. The Secretariat draws the authority from the Commission. So when you don't have a Commission, things cannot proceed. There are wards in the country, there are constituents right now like Ugunja who don't have representatives. These are very vital for the development of this country. So At the moment, we're in a constitutional crisis because when you don't have IEBC, things cannot move as a nation. The IEBC has lots of functions, and when we don't have the commission in place, then there's a very big problem as a nation, which we really need to move forward, reconstitute the IEBC so that this nation can move in the positive direction. Yeah.
And Wakili, we have seen a lot of some of the court orders that have directed IEBC to do certain things that the Secretariat cannot achieve, but they are waiting for the IEBC commissioners to come in so that they can heed those court orders. So can we say the Secretariat that has been directed by the courts to do certain duties, are they in breach of not adhering to the court orders?
I think we're a dilemma, my brother, because once the court has issued those orders to the Secretariat to conduct a few issues, but again, the Supreme Court is the highest, the apex court in the land. The Supreme Court in its judgment held clearly that the IEBC is the commission. So we are in a crisis because the court issues orders to the Secretariat to conduct these functions. Then the Secretary again reminds us that they are not the commission, they are not IEBC. They only draw the authority from the commission. So we're in a crisis because we are putting a Secretariat in a position between a rock and a hard place. Because they have orders, but they don't have the authority, as per the Supreme Court judgment. So I think it's really high time that the Supreme Court will give an advisory opinion in this matter. Can the Secretary conduct some of these functions that is solely and squarely at the table of the Commission, which we now don't have in place as we speak? Yes.
And you say the same quagmire that we even saw the Secretariat led by the Chief Executive Officer, that is Hussein Marjan, wrote to the Supreme Court of Kenya asking for an advisory in terms of conducting the boundaries delimitation that was supposed to be conducted way back in March. So what are we foreseeing? Will the courts tell the Secretariat to carry out the boundaries delimitation, given that there are active court cases against the selection panel that is expected to appoint the commissioners?
I really foresee that much, because at the end of the day, the Constitution of Kenya is the supreme law of the land. What it dictates is what we have to abide to. We are a country governed by the rule of law. So what the Constitution stipulates is what we must move with, and we must obey that word by word. So we are at a high time. I think it's very tough for the Secretariat. I can imagine where my brother, Mr. Marjan, sits today, because he has court orders which he needs to abide by. But again, he's at a quagmire because he's also following up the Constitution and what it states word by word. Exactly.
And of course, to the people who, like for example, in Banisa, you've just said Ugunja, where the Member of Parliament, and that is Opio Wandai, was appointed as the CS of Energy. Banisa, unfortunately, they lost their legislator, as well as in various wards where they lost their legislators as well. And of course, there are other court orders that have been issued in election petitions that by-elections should be recarried, because the court cases that were filed for the current leaders who are in that office were told that they did not win according to the way they were supposed to. So what are the options the people in those wards and constituencies are left with?
At the moment, it's tough on the people, because as you've clearly said, the Secretariat has no authority to gazette for by-election. So it's only upon we as a nation to hasten the court processes, then we have a fully reconstituted IEBC commission. Then once the commission is in place, now we can gazette for those elections. But I really think it's high time again that if we could amend the IEBC Act so that we delegate some of these powers to the Secretariat. Because it only entails the CEO of the IEBC to gazette a by-election in a particular ward or in a particular constituency, because we don't understand or exactly know how long it's going to take for us to fully reconstitute IEBC. But you have to keep it in mind that the people of Gunja, the people of Banisa ward, need representatives. They need representatives to represent them at the ward level, at the county level, I mean. And the people of Gunja needs a fully elected member of parliament to represent them in the National Assembly. Their issues have to be discussed. Their issues have to be addressed. The CDF fund has to work for the people of Gunja. The issue of representation, they have lots of myriad of issues affecting the people of Gunja, the people of Banisa. So we are at a position where we cannot foresee when IEBC will fully be reconstituted. But again, the those people need representation. As I was saying, if we could amend the IEBC Act to delegate some of these powers, my brother, to the Secretariat, to gazette and conduct by-elections to the people, so that the people can fully understand and fully recognize and appreciate the role of representation, the role of oversight in the National Assembly, the role of legislation to their people at the ward level and at the constituency level, even at the county government level, because we never know. Maybe tomorrow, God forbid, we may lose a governor. Maybe tomorrow we might lose a senator. Then how long are we going to wait for a whole county, for a whole senator to be what? To be elected again in a by-election? Because in a county government, it's easier. Once the governor is demised or removed from office, the deputy governor will take over. But that does not apply to other places like the Senate, like the constituency, and like the ward level. Yeah.
And of course, given that we have seen a lot of issues, especially when it comes to the succession line in various positions, like you're talking a member of parliament and a senator, you are talking about some of the amendments that were made in the recent IEBC Amendment Bill of 2024 that was assented to by President William Ruto. It had clear defined rules for the chair and the CEO. So in essentially, if you're saying we should donate powers, some powers to the CEO, don't we foresee we will witness the frictions that were witnessed between Chebukati and Chiloba?
Yeah, you know, the issue of Chebukati and Chiloba, it really transpired much during the 2022 general elections, where there was a friction between the chair and the secretariat. But their issue was not governed by law. If we have clear laws that delegate this power to the secretariat, let me say to the CEO of the IEBC, and a clear law that delegates this power to the chair, then we have now an issue where there's a clearly defined role for who's to do this and who's to do what. This also we have witnessed recently in the 2022 general elections, where the Cherera Four, as we've called them severally, and the IEBC chair, where some of them are thinking that in the absence of the chair, then the vice chair can do those roles. Yes, that is clearly stated in the IEBC Act. In the absence of the chair, the vice chair acts on his behalf. In the absence of the chair and the vice chair, a member of the commission elected by the remaining 4 members can act as the chair of the IEBC. But now these are some of the amendments that have come with the IEBC Act 2024, where now the Act now clearly stipulates that the vice chair cannot act in the absence of the chair. If there's a vacancy in the office of the chair, another substantive appointment must be done to avoid these frictions that we witnessed recently. And it was a very big shame as a country, where we have a group of commissioners at the Serena Hotel, and the chair and his members and the 2 remaining commissioners at the Bomas of Kenya. It was a very big confusion as a nation. So clearly we should have all these roles stipulated in a statute, in an act of parliament, so that everybody runs on his lane, where nobody does this. Because it was very unfortunate, to remember also, that a commissioner was saying that him was granted a role at the parking. How can you delegate a parking duty to a commissioner? It was very unfortunate, my brother. Yeah.
And of course, in terms of role, we have seen various IEBC previous commissioners as well as chairs. Some of them are not even residing in the country. So what does that say even about the IEBC role? You're calling people to apply for these positions, but they know at the end of their term they will either be outside the country or they will require a lot of security. So what does that mean for the IEBC commissioner role? Should we as Kenyans apply for these positions, or should we avoid it altogether?
We really need to play for the role of IEBC commissioner. You know, the IEBC plays a very integral role in this republic. It's one of the most vital commissions that we have in this republic, because they dictate who becomes the head of state, who becomes the president for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, if it goes for a 2-term limit. So it's my calling upon every Kenyan that if you want to be a commissioner in the IEBC, you have to get out. You have to be ready to serve the nation. I wouldn't wish to imagine a scenario as we witnessed before, where we have an IEBC commissioner not serving the country. An IEBC commissioner is a very important commissioner, because he works on full-time basis. It's a full-time job as an IEBC commissioner. So if you don't need to work for the people, don't apply for that position. You have to be ready to be 24/7 available for the people of Kenya, because you matter so much to us as a nation, because you dictate who becomes, you arbiter, who becomes our member of parliament, who becomes our MCA, who becomes our governor, and ultimately, who becomes our president. You are the referee. So then you must fully be available for public service. Yes, there's no way to around it. If you want to stay outside, okay. If you want to remain in the country, stay in the country and serve the people from anniversary towers or anywhere that will be delegated by the chairman. Yeah.
But Wakili, then again, the question comes in, is there a good political will to allow these commissioners to do what they're expected to do? We have witnessed various political interference in the last previous elections that we have witnessed in this country. So is there that goodwill to allow these commissioners, when they come to the office, they will do what they are mandated to do and forego some of the external forces that are telling them to do otherwise?
We should ask ourselves first, why do we have this political interference? I think I've witnessed 4 or 5 elections in Kenya. The 2002 general election, I think I was still a young man. I was, 11 or 12 years old. But in 2007, I witnessed that election. But you can attest and agree that from 2007, we have had issues either before or after elections. Then what does that tell us? Do we have men and women of integrity at the IEBC as commissioners? If we have men and women of integrity, then we will not have political interference. It only comes to play when some of these commissioners are ready to be bribed. You're being bribed for a few millions of money at the expense of the lives of 40+ millions of Kenyans. So we should raise the threshold for us to ensure that we have men and women of goodwill. Once we have men and women of goodwill, then we have our civic education, and we tell our political parties, and IEBC should be a very neutral arbiter. Let them do their work. Go out there, campaign for your candidates. At the end of the day, let's accept the outcome of every election. Above all, I repeat, IEBC needs men and women of integrity. The role of an IEBC commissioner, the role of an IEBC chair is a greater calling. The IEBC chair is a greater calling. It's one of the most important chairmen that you have in this Republic of Kenya. Or chairperson, as I will put it, just to ensure there is an issue of gender balance. Yes. Men and women of integrity.
Of course, and even in the selection panel, when some of those amendments were being assented to by President William Ruto, the clerk of the National Assembly, that is Mr. Njoroge, clearly stated, even in the selection panel, they need to adhere to this 2/3 gender rule. If you're just joining us, our viewers, we're talking about the reconstitution of IEBC that has delayed, especially with various court proceedings that are happening at the corridors of justice. You do know that once the President assented to the IEBC Amendment Bill of 2024 into law on July 9th, 2024, to guide some of the processes that require the selection panel to be formulated in the recommendations that were made in the NADCO report from 7 members of the panel to 9 members. And of course, we are waiting to see the Parliamentary Service Commission that is yet to appoint someone for this particular position, as well as the Law Society of Kenya, where some of those names will be listed. And once it is listed, Parliament is expected to forward those names to President William Ruto. That will allow the process now to start of the selection panel. But Wakili, here comes another question. The selection panel that was led previously by Augustus, it had already, when they came before the NADCO committee chaired by the majority leader of the National Assembly, that is Kimani Ichung'wah, and Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, they said they had already shortlisted candidates. So do we anticipate the selection panel to save the taxpayers' costs, especially when it comes to finances? Are we going to see them, the same short list they had shortlisted, bring forth, as opposed to restarting the whole process again?
Yeah, they really need to restart the whole process. But as you can remember, the previous selection panel was disbanded by Parliament. We currently don't have the previous selection panel in office. These were some of the amendments that we wanted to put into the new act. So once the selection the panel was disbanded, then the NADCO report came into play, which also recommended the additional number of members in the selection panel from 7 to 9. Now, once we have that, Now, as you've clearly stated, the Parliamentary Service Commission should forward at least a maximum of 4 names, 2 men and 2 women, to the Parliament. Then the Law Society of Kenya has 1 person. Then the Interreligious Council of Kenya has 2 persons. Then the Political Parties Liaison Committee should also forward 2 names. This will now bring us to the 9 members of the selection panel. But again, we really have to put in mind that even in the 9 members, we have to adhere with the 2/3 gender rule. We have to make sure that we include both gender to ensure that if you have a maximum of 6 male, then you have 3 female. If you have a maximum of 6 female, then we have to ensure we have 3 males. Yeah, just to abide by the provision of the Constitution of Kenya. Yes, we have to ensure that we have 2/3 gender rule in the selection panel. Yeah.
And of course, those were some of the changes that were made within the panel. And of course, we do anticipate the Speaker, who clearly stated on that Sunday at a church service. Now, it's a little bit of correction there. The Parliamentary Service Commission is supposed to at least have 2 people, one representing the majority and another representing minority, as well as the only people who are mandated to have at least 3 persons is the Political Parties Liaison Committee. And of course, that is where the quagmire comes in between Augustus and Ambassador Kokimuli. And then, of course, the others are the Law Society of Kenya that are expected to send 1 representative. And finally, the Interreligious Council are expected to send at least 2. And of course, they were told to adhere to the 2/3 gender rule. And of course, we're also talking about the boundaries delimitation that were expected to happen early this year, that were expected to be done in intervals of at least not less than 8 years and not more than 12 years, provided that the review shall be completed at least 12 months before a general election. Now, Akili, tell us the importance, if these boundaries delimitation are not done and we enter the electioneering period, what does this portend for not just the legislators but the constituent members residing in the 290 constituencies?
Yeah, it's a very important issue. These are one of the reasons why it calls for the constitution of IEBC, because we have to have the boundaries delimitation at least 12 months to the general election. It's very important because we've always pushed for the 1 man 1 shilling vote, and our population in this constituency is growing at a very alarming rate. So then we must ensure that once we have the IEBC Commission in place, then we have to ensure that the boundaries delimitation of all our 290 constituencies are clearly looked into to ensure that we abide by the provisions of the Constitution of Kenya. It's very important for IEBC. It's one of the issues that should be given a maximum priority basis and to ensure that the same is adhered with before we enter into the 2027 general election, which is very important.
And for some people who are presenting issues, especially in the NADCO report, and they have seen the IEBC amendment bill at least being assented to by President William Ruto, but there were other outstanding issues within the NADCO report, especially touching on the country's governance system that required for constitutional reforms, other at least required parliamentary intervention. But if the IEBC Amendment Bill 2024 has been assented into law, is there hope for the other recommendations that were made within the NADCO report to be adhered to as well?
Yeah. There are very many grounds, but some of these issues can be handled by Parliament. Once the Parliament resumes as it's receiving today, they should look at it to the NADCO report. I find which of these important issues that have been left out in the amendment of the Act. Then once we do so, then as we progress, because the amendment of the Act is not a one-day thing and we still have a few years to the general election 2027, so then Parliament can sit down, Parliament can discuss over these issues, and if there are things that we can still amend, we still have time to amend the Election Act, to make sure that once we get to amend the IEBC Act, to make sure that once we get to 2027, we have a fully functional, operative, effective, and an accountable act for the people of Kenya. It's not long lost, my brother. We still have time. Let us first consider what in the 2024 Amendment Act. We proceed and implement those things that are there, because I think the issues that are in the Amendment Act 2024 were the vital issues that really mattered on the reconstitution of IEBC. Once we have a fully functional IEBC, Parliament can work in liaison with the IEBC, with the Commission now, to ensure that we have an effective act as we approach 2027. 27. Yes.
And of course, some of the issues like the country going for a referendum or voice within that committee. So as a country, are we ready to go for a referendum to make those changes that were being recommended in the NADCO report?
Yeah, I think we as a country we are ready. But you know, a referendum takes a rather long process. And we can't have a referendum without the IEBC Commission. That's why I'm saying and I'm insisting that some of these issues are very important issues. They're very vital to us as a country. But let's not put ourselves where the Secretariat of the IEBC is today. That we can have lots of ideas, very good ideas, but we can't implement all these ideas without first reconstituting the IEBC Commission. Once you have a fully functional IEBC with substantive commissioners in office, then as a country I think it is high time we can sit down and look at a scenario whether are we really ready for a referendum. But as I always say, the 2010 Constitution is a very progressive constitution. Even before we rush into a referendum, have we fully implemented the 2010 Constitution? It's one of the most progressive constitutions in Africa, if I not mention the world. So we fully need to understand, before rushing to a referendum, have we fully breathed life to the 2010 Constitution, being one of the most progressive constitutions that we have in the region and the world over. Yes.
And of course, given that we have a progressive constitution, has our constitution, you saw we marked at least 14 years, we're still celebrating that progressive document you're talking about. Has our constitution addressed these particular issues? And why as a country do we always find ourselves here? In only a year or 2 years to the next general election is when our IEBC is reconstituted, and that is where the IEBC is expected to handle these various cases. On top of that, right now you do as a country, we are facing financial hurdles, especially when the president clearly announced that with the withdrawal of the Finance Bill of 2024, major cuts are experienced in not just the high-ranking government officials, but in commissions, independent institutions such as IEBC. So as a country, as and when these commissioners are in place, are there sufficient ground, enough resources to conduct what they are supposed to do?
We have to acknowledge, my brother, that we are in a very hard situation economically, based on the Finance Act 20.
Finance Bill 2024.
2024. But again, the Finance Bill 2024, just like the IEBC, we are always trying to not to cure the problem. The vacancy in the office of the IEBC chair the office fell vacant on February 2023. The IEBC Act provides that the process for filling the vacancy in the office of the chair or any other commissioner should begin at least 6 months. At least 6 months. As a country, we didn't do that. So we are finding ourselves in a situation where there's an office, there's a vacancy in the office of the IEBC chair, plus 2 commissioners, when we ought to have begun this process way back as it stipulates or as provided in the IEBC Act. As we speak right now, I'll agree with the President, we are at a very harsh economic times. That even after we've had the substantive commission in office, do we have enough resources for a referendum? That is one. 2, is the referendum a priority at the moment? I will say it is not, because there are issues that the country or the government must first listen to and address. Our men and women recently in Turkana are going hungry. We need to spend some of these resources into making sure that we mitigate the hunger pangs in this country. So even as we proceed, we must ensure that at the moment we don't have enough finances to even run a referendum. But the most important thing first, that let's first have the IEBC in office. Because there are very many ways, even IEBC itself can raise revenues. There are issues. IEBC is a body corporate, it has property. There are gifts, there are donations that are being given to IEBC. But will that be enough? It is not enough. So I think as a country, first we now need to prioritize. But the most important thing that we must ensure that IEBC is fully reconstituted, that some of these issues, the pressing issues like the boundary elimination, the by-elections, to be addressed, gazetted, and those people are elected, and the people have a substantive leaders who represent them at both levels of government. Yeah.
And of course, quickly shifting into some of the recent issues that we have been witnessing in the country, especially when it comes to the adherence of court orders. We have witnessed what has happened between, that is Justice Mugambi, as well as the Inspector General of Police, who is in an acting capacity, that is Mr. Masengeli. I want to know, what are your thoughts on the recent happenings within the corridors of justice?
It's a very unfortunate day for the judiciary. And we being officers of the court, it's a very unfortunate day. Because Justice Mugambi acted within the province of the law. Nobody's above the law. And all of us must abide by the rule of law. The Acting Inspector General, Mr. Masengeli, was summoned by the court. He ran a for contempt of court. And when a justice delivers a judgment in accordance with the law, then we should not experience what we witnessed recently on Sunday. The withdrawal of the security is a very unfortunate event. It's a tussle now between the judiciary and the National Police Service. So it's a very unfortunate event, and we as a judiciary and members of the court, we say no to that act, and we call upon everyone, the people of Kenya, that no one is above the law. Let us all abide by the rule of law. Let us all obey the court orders. If you're someone, appear in court, defend yourself. Everybody has a right to be heard. Why will you appear in court? We don't know.
And of course, what precedents did it set, given that it has been issued not just for the first time, even a previous IG, they say it had gone the same way. But in terms of Masengeli, he is already sentenced to 6 months imprisonment. So who is expected to effect those orders?
Masengeli is not above the law. So once then we have that, the National Police Service, he has a very long list of officials to ensure that the court orders are directed most of the times in court to a specific OCS. Then once now you're a convict, as he is today, the police must act within the law and make sure the orders are effected. He has a right to appeal. If he's not agreeing with the High Court orders, he can go to the Court of Appeal and appeal. But right now he has to obey the law. As we speak, he's a convict, and that has to come to place. And again, we must remember, it has come a long way, and it's at a very bad place. This is not the first time it's happening. You remember the Matiang'i issue? The Matiang'i issue when Miguna was being deported. There were myriad of court orders that the government disobeyed. So once the court orders are being disobeyed from the top, what do we expect from the junior officers? It's a very bad precedent, and we must come out together and say no to this country. Kenya is a very progressive country, our constitution and everything, and we are a country governed by the rule of law. Let us all obey court orders. Yes, we stand with Justice Mugambi.
Okay, and hold that thought. The National Police Service issued a statement in regards to that and said they have been drawn attention to statement issued by the Judiciary Service Commission, which was led by none other than the Chief Justice yesterday at the footsteps of the Supreme Court, assigned that by its chairperson, that is Honorable Lady Justice Martha Koome. In a statement, JSC alleges that the security details assigned to the Honorable Justice Mugambi was withdrawn over the weekend, and supposedly in their statement to send a chilling message to the judiciary and the public at large that those entrusted with upholding justice can be intimidated, bullied, or against for their rulings. Now, in response, this is what the acting IG, who has failed to appear before the court, responded to, clearly stating that the National Police Service would like to clarify as follows: the responsibility for the independent command of the National Police Service is vested in the Inspector General, and no person may give a direction to the IG with respect to employment, assignment, promotion, suspension, or dismissal of any member within the National Police Service. In the view of the foregoing, the National Police Service wishes to rebut the allegation raised by JSC and assure that the country, that security of all Kenyans, judges included, remains our prime consideration. In particular, NPS notes that other than the President, the Deputy, and the retired President, no other Kenyan is entitled by law to be provided with personal security detail. Other persons are provided with personal security based on the criteria set out above and in the policies developed by the National Police Service, and may be determined by the IG from time to time. The tenure of judges does not, by that fact alone include personal security as a matter of law. In the line with the VIP policies, VIPs are protected by special units including security of the government. That is what the IG is saying. He's saying the only people who are mandated to get that kind of security is the president, the deputy, the retired president, and no other Kenyan is entitled by law to be provided with personal security detail. Your views?
A very unfortunate remark. Very unfortunate. Why is just Mugambi an exception? How many judges do we have in this Republic of Kenya? How many Court of Appeal judges do we have in this Republic of Kenya? Have all the security been withdrawn? No. So if you say that nobody is entitled, then if that's the allegation, then why haven't they withdrawn the security for the other remaining judges? And where is it coming right now that Mr. Masengeli was convicted for contempt of court? It's very unfortunate. Let's not run away from the law. Let us not sugarcoat these issues. Let us call a spade a spade. If Mr. Masengeli was convicted for contempt of court, let him obey the court order. He has a right to appeal. There's a whole hierarchy. Let him rise to court once he has obeyed that court order. The moment he's convicted of that offense, I don't even know where he derives his authority, even to respond to that statement from the Chief Justice.
And the other issue, just explain to us as Kenyans, we want to understand the security details for the judges, what basis, especially when it comes to the Constitution and the Judiciary Act, where is it envisaged that judges should get those security details, and how are they supposed to be deployed within the judiciary system?
Yeah, there are some of the policy guidelines that guide judges of the High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. You must accept that the issue of security of judges is not in the Constitution of Kenya. But again, we consider the kind of work these people do for the people of Kenya. Judges sit in the courts, judges meet very many people, and they handle a variety of cases. And so their security also comes to the play. Because today I'm handling a robbery violence victim, a murder suspect, a defilement suspect. Then we understand again there's a right to bail and bond, then these persons who walk out here freely. You never know what somebody might have brought to you. So now the judiciary policy guidelines stipulate that some of these judges be provided with security. And that again is the provision of the judiciary fund. It's them that they apply for these judges. It's the only two for the High Court judges. A driver and a bodyguard, just to make sure that our judges are safe even as they deliver their judgments in court. When they walk out there freely, knowing the security is not at stake. So it's very important, and it has happened over time. It's not something that just happened recently. Judges have been killed outside here. Magistrate yesterday, we had an issue in Makadara where magistrates was shot in court. And also the magistrates were calling for security, which to me I think it's very important. So the issue of security is not something that we should debate upon, and most when it comes to judges of the High Court, judges of the Court of Appeal, and judges of the Supreme Court. Yes.
And what does it say about the independence, especially of an independent arm of government such as the judiciary?
Yeah, the judiciary is an independent arm of government, but again, these three arms of government work interdependently. Because tomorrow, the IG, now Mr. Masengeli, will have an issue on himself. He will run to the courts, and he will want the court to protect him. He is the same judge that you run to when you have an issue to protect your interest. Why would you do want to make sure that this judge is safe? So, in as much as our arms of government are independent, then the three arms of government must work cohesively and interdependently to make sure there's a smooth running of government. The arms of government, at the end of the day, they come together and form a single government. Yes.
And of course, the statement issued by the National Police Service, of course supervised by none other than the IG, said that such was the case for the Honorable Justice Mugambi's security. He further to says that the two officers, being on general duty officers, were recalled for purposes of attending VIP security courses. We are aware that suitable arrangements were made to ensure that Honorable Mugambi's security was always assured. So in that event, for example, if those two officers are recalled, what other avenues can the judges and magistrates use to ensure that they are secure?
In terms of security, I think when the National Police Service recalls a judge security, it has a duty to replace that security. The officers on general duty, they are not attached to the judges permanently. They can redeploy to other activities. But once an officer is redeployed, not withdrawn, we have to draw a line between withdrawing and redeploying. When I redeploy an officer, then I replace that officer with another officer. So in the argument that the officers were redeployed to other general duties, then they ought to have a duty to replace other officers attached to Justice Mugambi, because how else will he have security? He can't stay indoors. He has to report to work on Monday. Then how secure is Justice Mugambi that he reports to work at the Milimani Law Courts, yet just recently he issued an order for the conviction of the Acting Inspector General of Police.
But he says in the statement that Mugambi's security was always assured.
What assurance do we have? Because if it reaches a point now where the Chief Justice walks to the floors of the Supreme Court, then there's a problem. It is not assured. Then what such measures did they put in place to assure Kenyans, to assure Justice Mugambi that is safe? That they have not disclosed. And when visitors in Jerusalem, we know these things have happened before. It's not happening for the first time. They have been redeployed. As you remember, even the president once faced these things when he was the deputy president. He had issues. So when the acting Inspector General is telling Kenyans that they ensure that his security is in place, how did they do that? They ought to have made a very comprehensive statement that we redeployed and you took these 1, 2, 3 steps to ensure that Justice Mugambi's security is safe, coming at the heels of a very active conviction. And again, it begs the question, why were the two officers redeployed just after the passing of the judgment? There's more that meets the eye. Yeah.
And then the other question that you have not promptly answered, if the IG, the acting IG, has been convicted, I know the Justice Mugambi in his ruling clearly stated that the Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, should ensure that those orders are adhered to and that he should be taken to prison. But the issue is, aside from the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, the National Police Service is also an independent institution. So aside from that acting IG, who else within the ranks of the National Police Service can effect such orders?
You remember we have 2 deputy inspector generals of police. Mr. Masengele is just one of them, who was the acting IG. We are left with the substantive Deputy Inspector General of Police, representing the Kenya Police. The National Police Service Commission has a duty. They can again have an acting IG, because we already have 2 in place, to effect those orders, I believe. Yes.
That we are waiting to see if that will happen. Yes, it's just a matter of time. We will see if those court orders will be adhered to. But then again, talk to us what it will mean, especially if we're seeing institutions, major institutions such as the National Police Service are not effecting such court orders. Then what happens to us as ordinary citizens? Are we going to abide to these court orders that are coming from the courts?
No, that's the unfortunate bit of it, because we are passing a very wrong message to ordinary citizens. And as I've said severally, Mr. Masengeli is just one but amongst very many sharks. The disobedience of court orders has always been there, and more so from top government officials. It is very unfortunate. And I said, if you're a father in a house, you should always lead by example. Because when you want to enforce, if the National Police Service today want to enforce an order against an ordinary citizen who has not obeyed a court order, then the acting Inspector General of Police himself is in breach of a court order. What message are we passing there? That now Kenyans must constantly obey court orders? No. Kenya is a country governed by law. And we say it and repeat it several times. When there's a court order, let's ensure everyone abides, respect the court order. There's no two way about it. We must all ensure that we obey court orders, and Mr. Masageli not being an exception. But as I said, a conviction is not the end of life. Mr. Masageli has a right to appeal. Let him exhaust all the avenues of appeal. Let him rush to the Court of Appeal if he so wishes. But as you speak, you can seek even bail pending appeal. But you seek bail pending appeal once you're already abiding or obeying the court orders. That's what exactly he should do, not write in these very many statements. Yeah.
And of course, and before we conclude our segment here, we want to talk to you about the issue of going back to what we were discussing, the IEBC issue. There are already active cases within the court in terms of the reconstitution of the IEBC. You heard from the speaker earlier on before we started this program. He was clearly urging the Chief Justice Martha Koome to ensure that those cases are expedited. In those particular issues, can those cases be expedited?
Yes, exactly, can be expedited. The cases can be expedited because they are cases touching on public interest. We can just have direction from the Chief Justice that the following cases should be heard on priority basis. It has happened several times. When you have a very pressing issue, you only need to file a certificate of urgency. Then your matter is heard on priority basis. Where we sit today, the court matters in the High Court of Kenya, they should really be expedited to ensure that we have a smooth and fast reconstitution of the IEBC. Yes. It's very important.
Wakili, before you give us your final remarks, I want to take our viewers to a function that is currently happening here in the capital in terms of the National Sacco. Speaking currently is the National Chairperson, that is David Matengwa here in the capital. I do understand our reporter, that is Yusuf Farah, is currently following up on that particular issue. It is the National Sacco Leaders Symposium here in Westlands, convened by the Kenya Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives. Let's listen to the chair.
Out there, because when they saw me, sugar was high. I went to hospital. I said I was not even sleeping. I said many words. I said it is good the government appointed me when I had grown-up children. If I had a young wife looking for children, I have no appetite for food. I have no appetite for anything. I'm just the way you are looking at me, getting stressed right, left, center. So we are focusing after the forensic. When they'll give the report, which is going to come out very soon, we will call another meeting that will tell you. We don't want also to talk much because we want also actions. We want to see action being taken on any person, any institution that was involved in the running down of the union. So, please, I request leaders, let's be patient. We were given, the Cusco was given a 1-year moratorium. Please, be patient, wait for us. We are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I hear good stories. I hear good stories that organizations were down and now they are so robust. We have seen those stories being said, and where I sit, the 4 months, I don't know whether it is 4 months or it's 3 months, I've stopped counting because I was asked by a professor in the central region that, are you sure, Chairman, 1 year is sufficient for you? Then I had to answer that professor. I don't know whether the professor is in this room. I said, oh, thank you. The professor is there, Commissioner. The professor, stand up. Yes, that is the professor. Thank you so much. Clap for that professor. So he was sympathizing with me because I've lost weight, and he was seeing the way I was running up and down. I was not sleeping, and he was asking whether the 1 And I said, 1 year to me is sufficient. I'll run the race that I can with my board members. Where 1 year will find us, it will be where we have reached. And I want to tell you, what we found in Cusco, we have seen positive. The accounts are now building up. We have sealed all the internal loopholes that were there. And the staff, we had 235 staff when we came in. And I want to promise you, we have not sacked anybody. But we are having now 190. 100? Yes, there are now remaining 186. Interestingly, I have not had any complaint from the MD that the workload is too much and we have few staff. Almost 50 staff have left. So the work is going on. So what does that mean? Yeah? So we are just managing. We have called, and the leaders, I know you have money. Leaders are always having money. They have vehicles that we have packed. We have recalled vehicles to manage the cost. Please buy for your wife. One, we are now auctioning. Please do that. There is a Cusco staff. Please tell them how much we are selling. We are auctioning those vehicles. Because we need that money. We need that money. Well,
that is the Sacco's Leaders Summit, and the chair is currently speaking. It is a symposium held here in the capital in terms of where the Sacco sector is. And of course, our reporter, that is Yusuf Farah, is currently attending that particular seminar and will tell us more in our subsequent bulletins. But we are concluding on our first hour. But Wakili, let me give you a chance to say your final remarks on the IEBC issues and in terms of adhering to court orders as we conclude.
Upon the ascension of the IEBC Amendment Bill 2024 into law, I really urge as a country that we move with haste and have the selection committee in place to ensure that we begin the selection and the recruitment of the IEBC commissioners. That again will assist us along in making sure that we have the gazettement of the by-elections, then we have the dimension of the boundaries, and as a country move forward and start thinking about the issue of the issue of the referendum, if need be, which I don't think is appropriate right now. On the issue of the court orders, I repeat and I reiterate, Kenya is a country governed by law. Everybody, we are all to govern by law, and nobody is above the law. My brother, Mr. Masengeli, and any other Kenyan outside there must always ensure that they obey court orders. There's no two-way about it. Yes.
Thank you so much. That is Wakili Vincent Kisukwa talking about the issues within the constitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, as Parliament resumes this afternoon. The Speaker assured that that will be top on the agenda, urging the Chief Justice as well, that is Martha Koome, to ensure that the court cases that are hindering the selection panel to do what is expected to do, to ensure that they're expedited within the corridors of justice. That concludes our first segment, but in the second segment we'll be focusing on leukemia in children. Already our experts are here in a studio. That is Celine Kilanya, a pediatric oncology specialist and nurse at the Kenyatta National Hospital, as well as Dr. Bernice Mukuria, a pediatric hematologist, and finally Dr. Napo Mugomba, an oncology medical officer at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Where are we as a country in terms of addressing this killer disease, especially that is robbing us of our future? Don't go too far. That conversation is coming up next.
Mtazamaji, tumekuandalia taarifa zinazogonga vichwa vya vyombo vya habari kutoka hapa jijini Nairobi na pia mashinani.
Wanahabari zaidi ya ubora wao wako ange kukuletea habari pindi zinapochipuka kutoka pembe zote za Kenya.
Kwenye kipindi cha Tamrini tunakuletea mazungumzo ya moja kwa moja kufafanua na kuangazia masuala yanayokuhusu wewe mtazamaji.
Kumbuka, taarifa yenye thamani daima hupokewa kwa amani.
Hivyo basi usikose kuungana nasi kila siku ya wiki.
Tukupakulie na tukutaarifu taarifa yenye mnato kwenye runinga unayoienzi. Kwenye kurunzi mashinani,
sisi DC.
Thank you for joining us on Healthy Living. Stay connected to Voice of America at voanews.com. A look at your kidneys and how they impact your health. And an expert discusses chronic kidney disease and how to protect yourself. And Ivorian psychologist Noor Bakayoko shares some insights on bullying and what can be done.
It's important to avoid major events or major health crises.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
Guys, there is this new product I am selling. Would you be interested?
What product?
Mind your business. It works wonders and it is good for human consumption.
Lucy is a cow. Okay, I've had enough for the day.
You bought a cow in Nairobi and you are all living in rentals.
Today you look very different and bombastic. Connie, are you going for an interview?
I learned indeed and I passed with flying colors.
Oh, here we go again. Can't you guys keep private? This was private. You are just tap to anyone you think would listen.
اللهم صل على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد عليه السلام.
Ambaye aliwahi kumjia Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam na kumwomba ruhusa ya kutoswali katika msikiti. Mja yule alikuwa ni kipofu na hakuwa na namna ya kwenda msikitini, lakini Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam alimsisitizia kuswali katika msikiti hata kama itabidi achukuliwe na watu ambao watamsaidia.
Kwa hivyo inatuonyesha kuna umuhimu sana wa Muislam kusema usiku akimwomba Allah na akiswali akimwomba Allah pia vile vile.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim.
Rabbil alamin ya malikul qudus azizun.
On KBC Channel 1, we are a TV station like no other. Get a taste of the best in entertainment.
Yes, indeed.
Feel the passion.
Will you promise me?
I swear that you will never lose me. I can't get married to you.
I'm sure you knew about it. That's why you're making fun of me.
Experience the drama.
Get out.
Who is the man in this one?
And the laughter.
Hii wigi umevaa kichwani. Sio wakati tulikuwa tunapishwa tunapewa mheshimiwa.
Move to the beat.
We are live from Broadcasting House.
And get informed on the latest happenings. KBC Channel 1.
Wow.
Yeah!
We are the full package.
Oh yes.
And Kenya's watching.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Mtazamaji, tumekuandalia taarifa zinazogonga vichwa vya vyombo vya habari kutoka hapa jijini Nairobi na pia mashinani.
Wanahabari zaidi ya ubora wao wako ange kukuletea habari pindi zinapochipuka kutoka pembe zote za Kenya.
Kwenye kipindi cha Tamrini tunakuletea mazungumzo ya moja kwa moja kufafanua na kuangazia masuala yanayokuhusu wewe mtazamaji.
Kumbuka, taarifa yenye thamani daima hupokewa kwa amani.
Hivyo basi usikose kuungana nasi kila siku ya wiki.
Tukupakulie na tukutaarifu taarifa yenye mnato kwenye runinga unayoienzi. Kwenye kurunzi mashinani,
sisi
DC.
Siku zinasonga sambamba na matukio yanavyojiri.
Kuyajua hayo, mbali na hamasa zilizopo kwingineko, shirika la utangazaji KBC limejitolea kuhakikisha ubora wa matangazo yasiyo na chuku.
Darubini huangazia mengi ya kusini na kaskazini, mashariki na magharibi, na kukuwasilishia kwa njia stahiki.
Ufasaha, usawa, uketo, pasipo kuegemea upande wowote.
Iwapo hutaki shaka kwa unachoarifiwa, Darubini itakidhi mahitaji yako.
Jina langu ni Nancy Onyancha.
Na mimi ni Harith Salim.
Jina langu ni Gladys Mungai.
Mimi ni Ahmed Jumabalo.
Nami ni Sarafina Robi.
KBC, angazo la Wakenya.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now in a second hour we'll be focusing on leukemia in children, and as a country we do have various statistics that have been witnessed in various parts of the country, especially in major cities. According to the National Cancer Institute of Kenya, in their report back in 2021-2022 indicated that 70% of cancer cases are diagnosed at advanced stages, with 2 out of 3 persons succumbing to the disease. The institute further notes that every year up to 3,200 new cancer cases among children are recorded. The institute further revealed that only 3 out of 10 children diagnosed with cancer annually in the country survive. Some of the leading counties with these particular cases are in the major cities like Nairobi, Kisumu, Machakos, and other parts of Nakuru, as well as other devolved units of Kiambu and Nyeri. And of course, joining us to talk to us about these issues that are being witnessed in the country and if the treatments that these kids are receiving in the country are adequate are none other than people who reside within this particular sector. Let me start off with Celine Kilanya, a pediatric oncology specialist nurse at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Celine, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next to Celine, we do have Dr. Napo Mugoma, an oncology medical officer at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Daktari, welcome. And then finally, we do have Dr. Bernice Mukuria, a pediatric hematologist. Am I saying correctly?
Hematologist.
Hematologist.
And oncologist.
Apologies for that.
Yes, okay.
Hematologist, and of course, she is a member of KESHO. Let me start with you, Celine. Given that you work at the Kenyatta National Hospital, how are we looking like as a country in terms of the latest statistics, if you have interacted with the latest statistics that we have in the country, especially when it comes to leukemia in children?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So where I work in Kenyatta National Hospital, we deal with the children who have cancer, and specifically leukemia is actually a leading cause of cancer in children. And being a leading cause, we get to treat them, we get to care for them, and there are quite a number. And you'd find that like in a year, we have like 500 cases in Kenyatta National Hospital, new cases. So you can just get to divide that in like every month. So they're quite a number, and we can say that we are dealing with them, we're caring for these children, treating them every single day, and we do have good outcomes. So as a country, we are making very, very many strides. When you get to compare between now and 5 years ago, we're making many strides despite the fact that they're quite a number. Yes.
And Dr. Napo, you reside in the same facility. Do we have enough resources to cater for these children?
The National Insurance Fund caters for most of the treatment. As long as the treatment is available in the hospital, the National Insurance Health Fund is catering for the costs. Yeah, so most of the all the treatment is catered for, as long as it's available within the hospital, come from diagnosis to the chemotherapy drugs, the support medication, and the support therapy as well. When you're looking at the transfusions, the supportive medications, anything that is available within the hospital is catered by the fund. Yeah.
And Dr. Bernice, finally, we're talking about some of the cases that have been reported in this report of the National Cancer Institute in major cities. What does that say as opposed to in other parts of the country where these cases have not been majorly recorded?
Okay. So We don't have very robust reporting systems as yet in place. So it wouldn't be surprising if we checked other counties and still found that there's a number of new leukemia cases in all the 47 counties essentially. So most of the data is coming from the facilities that actually treat childhood cancer. So in those major towns and cities. Yeah.
And Celine, we're talking about some of these cases that have been recorded here in the country, but in children, there are different forms of cancer. But why leukemia is mostly affecting our young ones?
Yeah, being a leading cause, when we get to deal with the childhood cancer, we usually say that because of course the research is still ongoing, but mostly it's genetic mutations which usually cause leukemias. We cannot attest it to a single cause which brings it about. So like why we as a country we have the acute myeloid leukemia and acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and you find that acute lymphoblastic leukemia is actually at a higher rate compared to acute myeloid leukemia, of which that is now what we have at the moment. Yeah, but when it comes to the causes, we just get to say that it's mainly genetic mutations which bring about the cancer in children.
Okay. Yeah. And aside from leukemia, Dr. Napo, are there other forms of cancer that are affecting the children?
Yes, we have the leukemias and the solid tumors. Solid tumors, we're looking at different organs of the body, from your brain to your liver to your lungs to your bones. We're also looking at the kidneys, which is also the most common, following the brain tumors and solid tumors. Yeah.
And Dr. Benis, we're talking about some of the genetic mutation Celine is talking about. Inherited childhood cancer account for 5 to 10% of such cases. Is this preventable, given that they are born with that particular condition?
Unfortunately, this is not preventable. Yeah, and it also presents a challenge with treatment because the underlying genetic condition also predisposes them to even other types of cancer. So treatment for them becomes a bit more challenging than a child who does not have the say genetic mutations, but some specific genetic mutations. So in terms of the causes of cancer, majority of cancer cases are as a result of unknown causes, right? So that 5 to 10% is as a result of predisposing genetic conditions. So these are syndromes that are known. Yeah, they're very rare. Things like Bloom syndrome, ataxia telangiectasis, they're very rare. But when they do occur in these children, then they predispose them to multiple types of cancer or malignancies. Yeah.
And Celine, what are some of the treatments that especially the Kenyatta National Hospital that you reside in do offer when it comes to cancer cases?
So to cancer cases, we have different cancer treatment modalities, one of them being chemotherapy. We also have surgery and we also have radiotherapy. And of course, this depends on the type of cancer. Because when we're looking at leukemias, like what we're discussing today, the mainstay of treatment is chemotherapy. And when there is central nervous system involvement, because this is blood cancer, that's whereby we have to include also radiotherapy. But now for solid tumors, like Dr. Napo has just mentioned, we usually have chemotherapy, surgery, and radiotherapy.
And Dr. Napo, we know chemo, it's a little bit harsh, not just to the adults, but to children. So how can these children bear with chemo? What do you make it? How do you ensure that those kids do not even suffer further pain?
There's a lot of the supportive therapy that is given just surrounding the chemotherapy. So there's the hydration, good hydration of the patient. If you're anticipating any blood cells going down the cytopenias, you have transfusions, you have bone marrow promoters, which they boost your immunity. There's antibiotic care, antifungal care. A lot of supportive therapy goes around the chemotherapy. It's actually bigger than the chemotherapy itself. The supportive care.
Comment on that as well. And while you do that as well, chemo, as I said, is a little bit harsh on kids as opposed to adults. Aside from therapy, what else can be done to ensure, or which other forms can be used to ensure that this cancer is treated, especially among the children?
You mean non-chemotherapeutic ways of treating cancer?
Yes.
Unfortunately, chemotherapy is still a major part of treatment of malignancies or cancers, both in children and adults. Interestingly, children are more tolerant of the chemotherapy compared to adults.
Oh, wow.
They actually get very high doses. We dose them by weight or body surface area, so it's very specific. You don't want to give them too much and cause unwanted reactions. You don't give them too little and not have the intended effect. Yeah, so they do take chemotherapy quite well, actually, compared to adults. In addition to the supportive measures that Dr. Napo has described, there's also nutrition, which is a key component of supporting these children as they're going through therapy. Like you said, these drugs are very toxic. They take a lot. They affect both the cancerous cells and the non-cancerous cells. So you want to make sure that you're boosting their nutrition, you're keeping them, well hydrated, transfused when they need blood support or blood product support, etc. So there's all that. Then there's also other non-medical aspects of treatment. Things like play therapy. Play is very important to children, to their well-being and for them to thrive. So we try to incorporate that as well in the overall treatment of the child. We try and continue with school as much as possible. So we try to have teachers who will take them through, age-appropriate learning for wherever they have reached in school. So the smaller ones will be coloring and doing their ABCs. The older ones will be doing a bit more complicated stuff, just to keep them, still feeling like they are still children and they're still able to do the things that other children are doing outside of the hospital. So there's all that.
Yeah, and which is very vital, especially when it comes to certain diseases such as cancer. A lot of stigmatization has been witnessed. So how do you handle such cases, Celine?
Yeah. So what we do, we try as much as possible to create awareness, because with lack of knowledge, you'll definitely expect that there'll be many myths and misconceptions in regards to cancer. And you'll find that even in our setup, we've actually found that quite a number of parents who are coming now with children who have been diagnosed with cancer, that their families even get to excommunicate them. They go like, it came from your family, it's witchcraft, and such type of cases. So what we usually do, we try as much as possible. We actually have a program which is ongoing for parent caregiver education, and we also try as much as possible to create awareness in churches, and we're working very, very closely with the spiritual leaders like the imams, the pastors and the priests, so that they can be able to create this awareness in order for them to be able to know that yes, cancer is it's something which is really, really big, but it's manageable. With early diagnosis, early treatment, we definitely expect to have better outcomes. So that is what we're doing now.
And Dr. Napo, still on the same, but on a different angle, is there enough awareness, especially for members of the public, so that they can go out and get tested? For us as Kenyans, until imekuwa mbaya, that is the time you'll find us in hospitals.
Strides have been made. So there's right now there's more awareness with continued programs that are running. So a lot of the patients or the community is aware that in case you notice this thing is persistent, a child is no longer playing well, a child has reduced in the activity, there's a persistent or not getting well illness, like there's a recurrent illness continuously, child has reduced in weight, there's a recurrent anemias, you're always in hospital. There's now more awareness more in the community, even in the hospitals. There's more awareness with the public and the healthcare workers now to look out for these diseases. Yeah.
And Dr. Bernice, we're talking about when a parent or even a community here, a member, is diagnosed with cancer, it is a major issue, especially here in our country. So what are some of these myths that are being associated with cancer?
Some of the common myths are that a diagnosis of cancer means death. It's not always true. In fact, with early detection, as Celine has mentioned, we have very good outcomes, especially in children. So cancer does not always mean death. In terms of other myths, the biggest one, I think, has to do with death. The others that come with a diagnosis of cancer have to do with the cost. Yeah, so we know that families now start thinking, okay, what does this mean? Do I sell land? What do I do? But like Dr. Napo mentioned, especially in public facilities, NHIF does cover a lot of the cost of treatment. So that's for chemotherapy, for diagnostics as well. It does cover a lot of that. So there's a lot of hope, especially for childhood cancer, and that's the message that we need to put out there. But if your child is diagnosed with cancer, it does not mean that's the end for your child. there's treatment available, there's help available, and there's always hope that they can, surmount that and proceed with their lives as normal as possible. Yeah.
And Celine, I'm sure you have received parents who do not have this medical insurance. So for a normal parent who was unable to detect such a cancer in their child, so how much, given that they are watching you right now, how much are they expected to come with to your facility to ensure that their child receives enough care?
Okay. Thank you for that question. I will still echo the sentiments of my colleagues. We really want the public to take up NHIF because it really does cover a lot of the costs. So when it comes to the costings, in fact, later today we'll be having a webinar, which is in conjunction with Kenyatta National Hospital, University of Nairobi, with NCCP, the National Cancer Control Program, which will be discussing more on the costs. So when it comes to let's say, a condition like leukemia. So we expect for the whole treatment to go to almost 280,000. That is chemotherapy because they're supposed to receive chemotherapy for like 2.5 years maximum. There are those who might have relapses later, and the way what we keep on saying is that yes, there is hope, and we need to create more awareness to the public so that they can be able to identify these cases, these symptoms early enough. Because the thing with childhood cancers, you cannot be able, most of the time it gets to present as a normal, like any other illness, like malaria, like frequent infections. So for the public and also the healthcare providers to have a high index of suspicion towards this. So when it comes to leukemia, 280,000 for the whole treatment for like 2.5 years, and this depends on the type of cancer. When it comes to the solid tumors, it's different. It might go to up to 70,000, and that is just chemotherapy. We have radiotherapy at Kenyatta National Hospital, usually charge it at 3,600 per session, and you might find out now, like leukemia, the one which you're concentrating on today, the patient might have to receive like 8 to 12 sessions of radiotherapy. So for each session, it gets to cost 3,600. So as you can see, the cost is there, but we have the National Hospital Insurance Fund, which can be able to cater for this. So that's why we keep on encouraging the public to take up National Hospital Insurance Fund. Yeah.
And soon, October 1st, it will change to SHIF.
Exactly, it will change to that.
The same issue, Dr. Napo, you can see some of the figures that Celine is mentioning here, 280,000. To Kenyans out there, that's a lot of money. So are there other alternatives that these parents can use to ensure, aside from the medical insurance, if they do not have funds, where do they go?
Come to our hospitals. You will not be denied treatment because you don't have cost. As long as you're in the hospital, treatment continues, as long as it is available in the hospital. When it comes to the time where the child is discharged home, we have social workers who work in conjunction with the family, and you're able to be credited or waived off some of the charges, but you also have to commit on some. So treatment will not stop just because you don't have the money at that very time. Yeah, as long as you're in a public hospital, treatment continues. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That is very vital, given that they're watching you right now. They're looking for solutions. Dr. Benis, now coming to you. As a country, we have witnessed in the past many people opting to go outside the country. Do we have enough facilities aside from the Kenyatta National Hospital to cater for the treatment of these children?
We do. The short answer is yes, we do. Yeah.
And locate that answer now.
So,
are they adequately resourced? Do they have the capacity to deal with such cases in the country?
Okay. So we have both public facilities as well as private facilities that are catering to these needs for the children who are now affected with childhood cancer, right? So the costs obviously vary. 280,000 is in a national referral hospital, but if you go to a private hospital, it's probably going to be closer to the millions. So all that is dependent on again, your pocket. But I know that also private insurance will cover some cost. Even NHIF will still cover in private institutions, but there's a cap to it, etc. So in terms of availability of care for these patients, there is availability of care in multiple hospitals across the country.
And in terms of awareness, given that you even having that particular webinar, are you also addressing this issue of patients going to seek treatment in India and other parts of the country?
Yes, we are. We are.
And of course, in that particular webinar as well, talking about the cancer treatments that have been factored in, are you looking possibly at other alternatives aside from surgery, chemo and radiation? Are there other alternatives are you exploring in terms of treatment of cancer that have maybe come up within the sector and you're just trying to test it out?
At the moment, yes, we usually call them like clinical trials, which are ongoing, and we also have other new novel treatments known as immunotherapies, which are actually, yes, they are available but quite expensive, but they really have good outcomes. So the immunotherapies, also known as biotherapies, are available, but for specific cancers. Yes.
And Dr. Napo, we're talking about support, because I'm sure if a cancer treatment, when it comes to treatment of such cases, it requires not just huge finances, but the support. Are you getting enough support from the government?
Yes, we are. The government, most of the medications that we need are being supplied in our hospitals. Yeah, so unless there's just a supply issue, but most of the treatment that we need is available in our hospital. Yes.
And have they addressed some of the challenges that you're experiencing, especially as an institution in catering for these children?
Yes, yes. Matters cost and availability has been addressed. Largely we can say more than 90% of the medications that we need, be it even the supportive medication. We are getting a lot of support from the government for our institution. The product support, be it the blood and blood product support, is also available in our institution, which also I'll credit it to our government. With the new oncoming treatments also are available in our hospital. Yeah.
And Dr. Benny, still on the same, we have witnessed even this current administration talking about once the social health insurance fund is in place by October 1st, they'll be factoring in this cancer treatment. So what do you like to see being addressed in the new insurance that was not addressed in NHIF, given that you've just said in the private hospital there is a cap to the treatment that you're receiving?
Yeah. Well, that's a heavy question, because as it stands right now, they are covering chemotherapy, they are covering bed charges, they are covering diagnostic imaging and surgery as well. Yeah, so that's essentially also radiotherapy. So that's essentially the whole spectrum of care for children with cancer and malignancies. I think what we want is just a scale up, because there's more children to be taken care of. There's more people who are outside of NHIF/SHA in the near future. So I think it's just also creating that awareness amongst the populace that it's important to register for this service, because it really benefits you in the long run, not just for cancer, but also for other illnesses. Yeah, closer to home. Then just in addition to what Dr. Napo was talking about in terms of transfusion and everything, and linking that to the question you asked about myths, I think blood donation generally in the African context is still very mythical. There's
blood
a lot
donation.
of blood donation, because these children need a lot of support in terms of blood products and blood itself. But in terms of us as a people, culturally, we don't really donate, naturally. If somebody has to be sick and then you're told, oh, we need blood, so you galvanize your relatives and your friends and you try and get as much blood as you can. But generally, we need to move to a point where we have a culture of blood donation, especially amongst young, healthy males, because they have the least complications in terms of screening. We are exposed to different blood types because of multiple pregnancies. So it's a longer screening process, just to put it basically, but especially amongst men, I think also you have more blood. We lose blood every month. We lose blood through pregnancy. Yeah, so I'm just saying, generally, blood donation is something that we need to scale up as a nation and to see as something normal and not taboo. Or if I have somebody else's blood in my system, am I me or am I them? You're still yourself. So I think we also need to build that service nationally and regionally.
And we've witnessed even the Kenyatta National Hospital carrying out such drives. So are they still on there? And are people coming out?
Yes, they are. They're actually coming out in numbers, and we really appreciate that. But we need more, because you see, blood is a product which cannot be produced, in a lab or in a factory. It actually has to come from someone. So the doctor is saying that we really need to bring it up and just take it up, just to be able to donate as much as we can, because blood saves lives, and especially for our cancer patients, they're receiving blood like in a week, just a week. A patient, one child has received, like several transfusions, probably even like every single day. So we really need them to, our public, to come in and donate as much.
And Dr. Napo, we have seen people focusing on cities, Nairobi, Mombasa, Eldoret. What happens to the people who are in Baringo, Turkana, who do not know some of these issues? Are we creating awareness even down there?
Yes, we are, starting from the healthcare providers a lot, and especially Kesho has really been working a lot with the healthcare workers. Every week we have different trainings through the CMEs, which are continued medical educations. So we are creating awareness to start with the healthcare providers as we go down to the communities, because the healthcare providers we are training, we are sensitizing on all this early detection, early diagnosis, early treatment, are the same ones who are going to the communities in different arenas, in the churches, in the family areas, and they're the ones who are referring to us, to the main cities. Yeah.
I'm sure, Dr. Bernice, you have attended so many seminars, benchmarkings. Are we doing enough in terms of adequately supporting you people in the sector to ensure that you go to other countries and seeing what other countries are doing as opposed to our own, and what we can improve on?
Yeah, there are a lot of strides towards that. Even just me being here as a pediatric hematologist and oncologist is a product of that support, because somebody had to fund my education in that sense, make me a bit better for the children that we care for. Same as Celine, same as Dr. Napo. Right, so there is some support, and there's still a lot of strides being made in that area. There's a lot of training ongoing for both nurses, doctors, medical officers, etc. I think in terms of capacity building, we are moving in the right direction. Yes.
Do you have enough personnel in addressing such kind of cases, especially at the Kenyatta National Hospital?
I will definitely say yes. In fact, this being the Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, we have a workshop next week, and we've actually worked a lot with international partners who have really helped in capacity building, and they've actually ensured that we do have trainings in pediatric oncology for both the nurses and the doctors, and which are ongoing like every single week, every single month. We continue with that, and as you can see, as we are here, we're actually specialists in oncology. We were able to go to school, and we have different institutions who are also offering oncology care, oncology education, that is. We even have MTRH, which is actually now doing a high diploma in pediatric oncology. So all this is actually going all the way towards improving the quality of care, pediatric oncology, and capacity building.
Given that seminar now is coming up, Dr. Napo, what are some of these issues that those seminars should be addressing and be improving on, so that at least at the end of the day there is not just affordable treatment, but a treatment that we can embrace as Kenyans?
The aim of these workshops is mainly to first train the current Kenyan healthcare workers to be able to look out for these early signs, early symptoms, and early referrals, especially from the different counties, because we don't just look at the healthcare providers in Nairobi. We invite across all government hospitals across the country. They all send representatives differently. This will be our third conference. So in the last 3 years, we've done quite a big training and it doesn't end there. We share contacts. We do share contacts with our colleagues, and anytime there's a suspicion or a query, we always reach out to each other. And if it's a referral, we push for early and prompt referral to our main centers, be it for final diagnosis, completion, or early starting of treatment. So we all work together. So there's capacity building, there's improvement in quality of care.
And before we take that particular link, let me give an opportunity to you, Dr. Bernice. Also, there's a conference in Kisumu coming up, if I'm not wrong, of Kesho?
There is.
Yes, and what will we be focusing on?
So every year, Kesho does host an international conference where it brings together stakeholders working in the hematology and oncology space. This is both adult and pediatric hematologists and oncologists, as well as international collaborators, be they people who deal with diagnostics, be they people who deal with actual treatment, research, etc. So it brings all of us together, and we're able to sort of compare notes and see what we can adapt or even adapt from, or what they can also adapt from us. Because as we said, there's a lot of work that goes into coming up with with the treatment plans that our children use in these centers where we work. So, and most of that work, unfortunately, has not been done on our continent. So most of what we do is adapting international protocols, but we're also building our own work. And from our adaptations, we also have a bit of data which we're using to also just show that this is how we are treating, for example, leukemia in Kenya, and these are the outcomes we're getting using these protocols. So it's a nice time for us to network and to learn, and also to continue growing the field and the practice. So in terms of who is invited, there's the medical practitioners, there's the nursing staff, and people who work directly with the children or other adults affected with malignancy. But there's also other relevant stakeholders, including insurance companies, etc., who can then be able to be advised on how to even design covers for people who are going through these diseases in terms of treatment and follow-up.
Hold that thought, ladies. I'm coming back in just a few. I want to take our viewers. I do understand that the Acting Inspector General, that is Masengeli, is currently addressing members of the Fourth Estate. Let's quickly listen into that link.
Officers are appearing within our system of administrative, that is order room proceedings and so forth. Also ensuring we relieve them traffic duties to other areas, as well as they wait their last or the outcome of the administrative issue or action that is being taken. Any matter before court is not discussed. Thank you. Mambo yaliyo kotini hatuongei kwa mitandao. Asanteni.
Naomba kuongea na Bwana Masengeli. Just 1 minute.
That was the National Police Service Acting IG, that is Mr. Masengeli, who was currently addressing members of the Fourth Estate. They had queried him in terms of the recent happenings within the corridors of justice, especially following the ruling of Justice Mugambi. He clearly stated that he cannot talk about active court cases that are before the judges, and of course we await to see what will happen, given that already a sentence was issued by Justice Mugambi. Yesterday, the National Police Service issued a statement in regards to the withdrawal, or the alleged, of course, withdrawal of police officers from the detail of Justice Mugambi. We even saw the Chief Justice Martha Koome addressing the same concerns. We're waiting to see how that will unfold in our bulletin. But right now, we're speaking about leukemia in children. We have experts in the studio. They've been able to talk about the cost, the treatment, and other opportunities that are within to addressing these particular concerns, because the myth that surround this cancer treatment and cancer itself, given that even Dr. Banis was talking earlier on about that the major myth that is associated with cancer is death. Now, going back to the various conferences that are going to be held here in the country, aside from the cost, the treatment, as well as other forms of cancer that are being experienced here in the country, what are these other issues, especially when it comes to policies, Celine, are you expecting to address there?
So in terms of policies, when it comes to childhood cancer care, the way we usually say, the way we're saying even today, that we need to create awareness, because unfortunately for cancer, for childhood cancer, you cannot be able to do screening. Maybe for specific cancers like retinoblastoma. But now, since we cannot be able to do the screening, we need to create awareness. So in terms of policies, we need to still work with the government and other non-governmental organizations so that they can be able to support us in, yes, creating awareness, ensuring that there's availability of drugs, ensuring that, like now for the SHA, which is incoming, will be able to address the challenge of lack of the parents not being able to have the money which they require to be able to receive treatment. So in terms of policies, that's the one thing which we really need to drive at. And the good thing is that the NCI and the NCCP are actually working closely with the conference and the workshop in order to be able to create this awareness that yes, there is hope, and we can be able to work towards getting better outcomes in cancer care.
And Dr. Napo, we know the ultimate goal, especially when it comes from the World Health Organization, the global initiative for #childhood care cancer aims to improve the outcomes for children with cancer around the world. And of course, by 2030, this initiative seeks to achieve at least 60% survival for children cancer globally and reduce suffering for all and saving at least 1 million additional lives. So where are we in terms of reaching this particular goal, and as a country, can we achieve it?
Good strides have been made. We don't have the accurate documentation and statistics collection for the current cases that we have, because they're subtly recorded in the different centers that we look after these children. So I've not come across the consolidated statistics for childhood cancer care and the survivorship, with the many challenges, be it in our follow-up and our loss to follow-up with our patients. So currently, but there are good strides being made. We're definitely better than where we were 5 years ago. Yeah.
And as you comment on that, Dr. Penise, I can see also in your conference you've invited especially government officials. Have we done enough, especially to adequately resource researchers, because we know they are very vital in addressing some of these issues? And in terms of inviting those researchers, what are these areas are you likely to focus on?
Right, so we'll focus on like what you're saying, where we are as a country. Yes, there's still a lot of work that needs to go into research and building robust data registries. So I think the first thing is to create a sort of cohesive database, which is what I think the NCI is working towards, which is why you sourced your initial statistics.
Yes.
So there's the NCI which is working hard in terms of sort of marrying all the different sources of data and giving us one rich database that can be used to generate national statistics and other subsets of data. So there's that. In terms of government and non-governmental officials or partners or collaborators, again, it's just it's a goodwill. We have a lot of policies in place in regard to cancer in general, and we also have a few ones in regards to childhood cancer, but we need that political goodwill. We need that person in the office to be able to now push towards implementation of these policies, because they are good policies and they can push us to where we need to be so as to meet the WHO goal of up to 60% survival in those key index malignancies that have been here.
And Celine, the other question that arises is, do we have enough medication here in the country? Do we manufacture here or do we import them?
That's a good question. So I would say that the drugs are available, but the challenges come in supplies, and we actually get to receive these drugs from other countries, from outside. So they are available, but now the challenge sometimes comes in the supplies. So that is why when even talking about the global initiative of for childhood cancer, we have the Cure All framework, which we can only be able to attain it because now this is a framework to be able to support the government in leadership and in technical support, in technical assistance, that is, so that we can be able to ensure that eventually that childhood cancer drugs and the essential drugs are actually free for our children, and that is what we need, the political goodwill. We already have the support, because actually Kenya is among the first 6 countries which have been identified for the global initiative for childhood cancer by the WHO. And so through this framework, we can be able to eventually get to that, so that the drugs can be available and they can be free through this support.
And Dr. Napo, what are some of these emerging trends that you have been able to witness, especially when it comes to cancer treatment and ensuring that they are prevented at an early stage compared to other countries in the world? Are we keeping up with them, or we are lagging behind?
For the trends, I think we're still a bit behind, but we've really introduced a lot of the diagnostic and specification of diagnostic innovations in our country, even in our public hospitals. With for example, for leukemia, we have the general diagnosis, which can be done on a peripheral blood or a bone marrow sample, but also that is via looking at the sample via microscope. But also we have the immunophenotyping investigations that are even available at Kenyatta National Hospital now. So we are moving somewhere. We have the immunos even for our solid tumors. Strides are made, but we're still a bit behind.
Yeah. Given that we're still behind, Dr. Badis, we're talking about some of the benefits. As much as we are citing some of the challenges, what are some of these benefits we have been able to witness in the country that has brought us this far?
So one is the availability of the drugs, of at least the essential drugs you need to manage majority of the childhood cancers. So we've come a long way from where we were even just 5-10 years ago. And this has also shown in terms of the outcomes we're now seeing with our children. We do have improved treatment protocols, which means that there are adjusted doses, there are different molecules being incorporated to these treatment protocols, and with that we have seen an improvement in the outcomes for these children who are affected. Another thing is diagnostics. As Dr. Napo has said, we have come a long way from simple x-rays and ultrasounds to MRIs, PET scans, and now even immunophenotyping, which is a far cry from where we were just a few years ago. Yeah, so we are moving in the right direction. We just need to continue supporting, each other and even our supporters, so that we can continue to grow and again meet this WHO target of at least 60% survival, especially for the indexed malignancies.
Other benefits we've witnessed, especially from the Kenyatta National Hospital?
Especially from the Kenyatta National Hospital. So from what I can be able to see, we have quite a number of patients who have actually been able to complete treatment. The treatment have been available, and because they're really working towards ensuring that the drugs are available, throughout. So we actually do have a number of patients who have who are actually survivors. Last week we were celebrating the opening of the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital, opening of the oncology ward, and we were actually able to celebrate some 2 survivors. So actually making a lot of strides. We're also having child life specialists who are working closely with the children. That is actually a really, really big development, because long ago, we used to be just thinking that, care for cancer is just, the chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and surgery. But just as Dr. had said, we need to look at the patient holistically. So we have the Child Life Specialist program. We also have the Patient Navigation program, whereby we're working with the patient and the parent, because the parent is the one who's going to be staying with the child. So they need support throughout the time, and through this patient navigation program, we're able to address any gaps which the child or the parent or the family is going through, and be able to see how we can be able to bridge that. So from my point of view, I can be able to see that.
And of course, Dr. Napo, we're talking about psychosocial support, especially for parents who are dealing and the caregivers who are handling these particular children. So have we done enough to ensure that they receive psychosocial support, so that at the end of the day they do not give up easily, because giving up is so easily?
Yes. In our institution, we have a lot of psychosocial support, be it from the religious leaders to our trained healthcare providers. Our social workers are there. We even organize for family, the extended family, to come, and we work with them, we introduce to them what is happening, what is expected. And in the journey of the patient, we work with the whole family, not just the parent, not just the immediate siblings. We work with them. There's a lot of support, be it in the other siblings that are at home. We look at the whole family centered, even in matters cost and the other supportive care that they need within the hospital. They're able to be given. We have the palliative care unit, we have the counselors who both counsel the parents, the extended family, and the patients who are of age, to understand what is happening to them.
And this cohort, Dr. Badis, we cannot forget. There are people who believe, aside from this conventional medicine, there are those people who believe in herbal medicine. So how do you handle such cases?
Well, so it gets interesting because yes, it's quite prevalent in our region, actually, to have alternative medicine in the form of herbs and leaves, etc. So it's very difficult to sort of quantify what molecules or what chemicals are present in any herbal concoction. So it's if a patient's family were to choose to go the herbal way, then we would have to respectfully step aside and allow it, but not mix it with chemotherapy, for example. We can't do both. See, chemotherapy is manufactured, it's measured, it's dosed and everything. I cannot speak for the herbal concoctions, so we discourage the use of both. And if a family insists, we do not force people to get treatment. We encourage it, but we do not force it.
Does this boil down, Celine, to trust, especially from caregivers and the doctors who are there and the specialists who are there? So how do you ensure that you boost that trust so that at the end of the day they can believe in some of the conventional treatments that we have in the 21st century?
I think I would say constant communication and ensuring that we get to involve the parents, just as Dr. Napo has said, through the psychosocial care, through the consistent counseling. Because with this information, the parent is able to make a better decision, just like in any other setup. So consistently, we usually do counseling like every other single day, so that we can be able to inform them the benefits of chemotherapy and ensuring that they stick to the treatment. Because yes, we also do have the loss to follow up, and that's when they get to, when we have the loss to follow up, they get to end up to go back home, they get to get into the traditional herbal medicine, then they get to come back when they're in like the metastasis has actually, it has spread throughout the whole body. We're now in 4th stage or even end stage. Now we are offering more of end-of-life care, all because they did not have that information. So we usually do the consistent counseling, consistent psychosocial care, so that they can be able to know that they are stakeholders in the care of this child. And with this information, they can be able to make better choices towards care.
And of course, with such cases, what do you tell parents? I know some of them are hard-headed, they do not want to listen, but how do you approach such cases? I'm sure you have at least interacted with one or two.
Yes. We talk to them from what we know. We explain to them the reason and the importance to first seek the medical care. We actually take it as we are telling them, give us a chance, let's do this. Let's first witness the experience and the outcomes of the medical care, but we cannot mix. We also call in parents. We have like the patient support groups. We call parents who've tried the other way, the alternative medicine, and they've come back with regrets. So we call the parents to also encourage the new parents. So it's more of us giving the care and the support to the patients, the new patients, but also a lot of patients, because this is a chronic thing. You've stayed with patients for months, years. So for the older or the more patients who've been there longer are able to encourage the new patients on, don't try that side. We've been there, it didn't work well, stick to this side. And the patients actually, when they see the improvement and the good outcomes from their patients, they will never go the alternate way. Yeah.
It also helps to address the stigma that's associated with a diagnosis of cancer, because they're all getting treatment together and they're seeing good outcomes, and people are living beyond the cancer. So these are the ones who now become our advocates out there in the community, and they push people to, seek medical attention. Yes. So that advert was playing in my head.
Thank you so much. And of course, as we're winding up, let me start with you, Celine. Your final remarks, and what can we look forward to, especially for the upcoming conference?
Thank you so much. So my final remarks will be, let us continue creating awareness. Let us create hope towards childhood cancer, because with early diagnosis, we definitely expect there will be early treatment and better outcomes, and to be able to offer the best quality of care for these patients. And towards the conference which is upcoming, we expect the good thing is that we've been doing a lot of research even here in Kenya, so we'll be showcasing the research which we've been doing, the novel technologies which we've been able to experience, so that we can be able to improve our patient outcomes. Because if we do expect to get to a 60% survival rate, then we need all the stakeholders to come into place so they can be able to work together towards that. So there is still hope in childhood cancer, and we can be able to get to where the high-income countries are. Thank you.
Dr. Napo?
Yes. My final remarks will be to the common wananchi. Cancer is treatable within Kenya. Cancer is treatable. We have so many unsung heroes, so many survivors from our childhood cancers who are out there the normal life. If a child is not well, seek medical attention. No doors are locked to you. Come, we'll treat you.
Doctor?
I think mine is just to fortify the same message, that early detection is our best hope at getting good outcomes in children. So whenever you feel a child is off for whatever reason, you'd rather come to the hospital and be told that nothing is wrong than ignore it and wait for it to fester and now present to us with advanced disease. So I think we just need to improve our health-seeking behavior. Don't be afraid of hospitals or doctors and nurses. Yeah, we are here to serve. We're here to help. Yeah, so if you notice anything, just come.
And the conference at Kisumu?
Yes. So Keep forgetting that bit. Yeah, so Kesho, the Kenya Society for Hematology and Oncology will be hosting its annual international conference this year in November in Kisumu, where we'll be addressing all these diseases that we deal with on the daily, as well as showcasing research, both local and international. And hopefully by the end of it all, we'll be able to continue improving even the care that we're able to give these children within our borders. Yes.
Thank you so much. That is Dr. Belize Mukuria, a pediatric hematologist, a member of Kesho. Thank you for making time for us this morning.
Thank you for
as well as Dr. Napo Mugoma, an oncology medical officer at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Thank you, Daktari, for coming in. And finally, we do have Celine Kilanya, a pediatric oncology specialist nurse at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Thank you for informing us on what strides we're making as a country, especially when it comes to treatment, not just in leukemia in children, but of course the adults as well, given that there are cases of adults who are experiencing or undergoing such incidences of cancer, as well as treatments, and the strides that we have made as a country in regards to that particular sector. Of course, with the oncoming of the Social Health Insurance Fund, the Ministry of Health assured that cancer treatment will be addressed there as well, so that you don't have to go outside the country to receive some of the treatment. You've just heard from the experts. We do have the facility, we do have the resources to cater for such incidences. That marks the end of our conversation this morning. But coming up next is Kasichana Masha with Kurunzi Mashinani, and of course in other stories that are making headlines across the country in regards to also what the acting IG has just told members of the Fourth Estate, and various parliamentary proceedings that are happening given that Parliament resumes today. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. The sign language interpreter at the bottom end of the screen is Susan Thuku. Good morning for now.